Good evening. Thank you everyone for coming. My name is Ken Miller. I'm the director here at Bayliss Public Library, which is part of Superior District Library. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight on what seems like almost winter now, doesn't it? Our featured poet tonight is Mary McMyne. She studied creative writing at Louisiana State University, has an MFA from NYU, won the Faulkner Prize, the Sustainable Arts Foundation Promise Award, and has many publications, including one she has here for sale tonight, her chapbook, which is Wolfskin. I'm going to buy one, it really looks good. She's an assistant professor at Lake State University in creative writing and co-editor of Border Crossings. Please join me in welcoming our Mary McMyne.
Thank you so much. Thanks to the library for having me and also for hosting the Superior Poetry Cafe, which is a lot of fun. I'm going to read from Wolfskin today, a few poems from Wolfskin. And the way that the fairy tales when she's little, and the book sort of follows her as she grows up. And some of the poems are modern poems that are from this girl's perspective as she thinks about her life and the stories that her mom told her. And then others of the poems are reimaginings of fairy tales. So the first one I'm going to read is kind of a cautionary tale about what happens to the little girl who takes Little Red Riding Hood too seriously. And it's called Fur. And there's a line in it about don't wear red, and I accidentally wore red, so oops. Fur. You know that story about the girl who meets the wolf beside the forest? The girl who wears crimson, who takes the long way through the wood to gather blooms? In my mother's version, the girl is mindless. Her head lolls. Her eyes roll like marbles. She is not girl but doll, as dumb as porcelain. You can't help but favor the wolf. Don't talk to strangers, my mother says. Don't stop to pick flowers. Don't wear red. Don't answer the door when I'm not home. Don't stray from the path I showed you. Only a sliver of light bleeds through the doorway. The bed creaks. In the hall, no father's footsteps. She bends toward me. Be not girl, her eyes say, but wolf. Years later, in the same room, I awake from dreams of shadows. My flesh prickles with fur. My body hums with ancient pangs. I want, I doubt, I dread. My heart thrums drum beats. The moon calls my flesh beneath my nightgown. I search the dark lawn. My mother is dead. The grass stretches, a sea of shadows into streetlights. Headlights telescope up the hill. The radiator clanks. My voice trembles in my throat. I howl as I stand behind the cracked glass of that window with my memory of that story and my mother and no one but the moon to tell. Okay. So this next one is sort of a play off of all the different versions of Little Red Riding Hood that there are. There's the Brothers Grimm version that many of you are familiar with, where the huntsman saves Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother from the belly of the wolf at the end. Before that, there's this version by Charles Perrault in which just Red Riding Hood dies at the end. Before that, there's this old oral version where it's called The Tale of the Grandmother. And in that version, Little Red Riding Hood actually is clever enough to pull a trick on the wolf and save herself. So this one is called The Girl Who Came Before. And it's kind of imagining a story that might have existed before that first one that we know of even existed. The Girl Who Came Before. Into the wood, dark and wild, the trees that bend, the leaves brush your arms and shoulders. They whisper of the girl who came before, who strayed from the path to gather blooms. Part the leaves, watch the path ahead blur and shiver. There she is, a shadow with her basket. She laughs, she dances, the hood falls to her shoulders as she weaves between trees. Let her show you the shadow wood, the gray wolf, the huntsman in chase of him. It never ends, she says, but they've nothing to do with me and you. Follow her to the clearing at the center of the forest. There a lake reflects like a mirror the moon bowl. This is where I was going, she says, before they interrupted. Then she takes off her hood, fabric parting toward water, and stands beside the pool. Come with me, she breathes, bare legs glowing by nightlight, the sky falling open around her. It is time for us to drown. It is time for us to touch the moon. So this one is called Wolfskin, and I think it's the last Red Riding Hood poem I'm going to read. And it's from the perspective of the huntsman, so it kind of starts in that moment where the huntsman is passing by the grandmother's house and he hears that snoring noise, and he goes to check on to see what's going on there. So it's called Wolfskin. Inside, the shadows shape a riddle, a story. The half-burnt candle in the kitchen, the unwashed dishes, the cloth-covered basket by the door. From the hook on the wall, neatly hung, the red ripple of fabric, the crackling fire, the light flickering in the hall. In the bedroom, someone is sleeping. At the foot of the bed, 2 well-worn slippers. On the side table, 1 book, 1 pair of spectacles. Night fills the room like cradle song. There it is again, that strange buzzing sound. There it is again from the bed. Such a little old woman could not make this noise. When the log falls into the fire and the light hits the shape under the blankets, when the log falls into the fire and you see the claw dragging the floor, you have already begun to rush at the bed with your scissors. You have already resolved to slit the beast open, the word hero stinging your tongue. In the story you tell your friends, you'll say you took home the wolfskin as a trophy. You'll say the old woman thanked you, and the girl went on about how frightened she was. But the truth is, the girl spoke only 3 words that day. Who are you? The truth is, the grandmother only whispered, white with shock, as she drank the wine, we were dead. It was dark when you left the grandmother's house, and cold. When you tried on the wolfskin, the stars laughed. Dead leaves crackled under your feet like fire. Okay, so another series of poems in the chapbook talks about Rapunzel, and the first one that I'm going to read is called Old Woman Gödel, and it's about the witch from Rapunzel. And the Brothers Grimm, if you sort of research the evolution of the Rapunzel story, the Brothers Grimm were the first storytellers to name the witch in the Rapunzel tale. And they chose to call her Gödel, which is both a surname in southwestern Germany, like a last name, and it also happens to be a word for godmother. So this is her version of the story. It was not about the lamb's lettuce. It was about my other garden, where no seed would take root, no matter how many times I watered the field. After I caught them thieving my rampion, it was all too easy to take the girl away. It was all too easy to pretend she was fruit of my vine, grown and ripened in my earth. I loved her so much, my breast ached with each step she took away from me. Each empty bottle of goat's milk, each whispered new word made my heart forget its worth. In the instant it should have beat, I longed for the union her birth mother must have felt with her, when the girl grew inside her and knew her alone. Nightly, I heard the sobbing next door. Nightly, in our room above the garden, I shut the window and sang, hush, child, la la la, listen to me alone. After their cottage went quiet, after its walls and roof grew thick with vines, I asked around. They said the river called to her. They said he fell to drink. When the girl turned 12, and I came upon the stone tower with neither door nor stairwell, I thought of them. I saw the vines grow thick and dark over my home. I filled the top room with silks and lace and ribbons. I bought 1,000 picture books, 100 spools of thread, an easel, paints, a loom. All I wanted was to put off the time the river would call to me. Let she who is without sin cast the first stone. Okay, so I'll read one more Rapunzel poem, and this one is from the perspective of Rapunzel herself. And this is called Songbird Rapunzel. And poor Rapunzel, I feel like she gets a bad rap. She makes a whole lot of mistakes, and she seems to be kind of ditzy throughout her whole story. So, and as over time, the Grimms sort of, they put out maybe, I don't know, it's at least 8 editions of their fairy tales that they kept publishing because they were so popular. And with every subsequent edition, they were sort of sanitizing the tales and making them more appropriate for children. So in the last version that they put out, Rapunzel informs the witch of her affair with the prince by mistake. Rapunzel doesn't come off very well. You kind of feel like Rapunzel's a silly little girl. So this is her response. Songbird Rapunzel. They paint me an insipid little thing, nothing beneath my golden curls. Sing a song, little bird, let down your hair. He said, she said, it wasn't like that. The old woman stole me at birth from my parents. I grew up with a kidnapper, an old crone who spent her days counting plants. My mother was lucky she only craved rampion. That garden was full of nightshade, henbane, black hellebore, there was foxglove, larkspur. I knew what spells the witch could cast. Listen to this song. The prince was my way out. I knew why my dress was getting tighter. It was no mistake when I told her of our tryst. Her little songbird was singing an escape from the nest. They say I was miserable when she threw me out, but I flew from that window. My curls flapped like wings, and there was a song in my throat as I soared over the grass. How are we? We're not very, what is it? Is that 7:15? We're okay, all right. All right, so the last poem I'll read from Wolfskin is called The Bazoo. And the bazoo is, the word bazoo is the French word for werewolf, and I grew up in Louisiana, and so I grew up hearing the word bazoo to refer to werewolves. So this isn't one of the fairy tale poems, it's one of the more modern poems where the girl, from the woman from the modern era is talking. The bazoo. 3 times he comes after me on the back porch, 3 times. The first, I'm just a child, pigtailed, 6 years old. My favorite show is Thundercats. My mother still tells stories about the big bad wolf. I sit on the steps with a friend eating popsicles. When he stands to go, I'm happy to stay behind and lick my popsicle, to feel the hot summer sun on my toes. Then he comes around the side of the house, the bazoo, a hybrid of Lion-O and Big Bad. Sharp-toothed, red-eyed, half man, half beast. I scream for my mother, but no sound will come out of my throat. The second time my friend stands to go, I sit up straight, ignore my popsicle. My skin prickles when the door slams. I stand, the boots I wore in 8th grade pinching my toes. When the bazoo comes around the side of the house this time, he has become the American werewolf in London. Wild-eyed, long-nosed, he moves quickly, legs swiveling from great shoulders, his jaw opening in a bloody-toothed snarl. I run to the back door, cursing the knob that won't turn, screaming for the mother who does not answer as he lopes, red-eyed, toward me on the porch. The third, it is strange to be sitting on the steps at all. I'm wearing a blazer and dress shoes, bifocals I won't need until my 30s. I set down my sticky popsicle to gaze, puzzled, at the yard I haven't seen since my mother's house sold. There's the fig tree, the bird feeder, the scarecrow she stood in the garden each fall, despite the fact that its arms were always covered in crows. Looking back at the screen door behind me, I know that the knob will not turn, that my mother will not answer. When the zoo comes this time, I will be on my own. But when he does come around the side of the house, he is smaller than I remembered, more man than beast. He walks slowly to the porch, apparently nursing a wound. He doesn't want to meet my eyes. Look at me, I tell him. His are bloodshot. He winces when I say, I don't believe in you. Okay, so I've been working on like a longer manuscript of poems that are fairy tale retellings. So I brought a couple more with me. This first one is going to be in a Chattahoochee review later this year, and it's called The Frog King. Do you guys know that story? You know the story about the frog princess? So I recently reread it. I got this beautiful book of Maria Todder's translations of Grimm's fairy tales, and it's got all these gorgeous illustrations in it, and it's really beautiful to read. But as I was reading the version of The Frog King, and it's the first story in all of the Grimm's edition of the fairy tales, it's the very first one that shows up. And as I was reading this story, something really struck me about that story, and what struck me is that the princess who's throwing the little golden ball in the air, there's her father, there's the frog, and there's her, and there's no mother anywhere in that story. And so I started reading like all these other versions of as many as I could find, to see what the history of the tale is. And in none of the stories is there any mention of a mother, like what happened to her, is the king a widower, or anything like that. And so I started to think about that story and how there's very clearly a mother absent, and what that sort of meant. So the Frog King, it starts with an epigraph, and it says, so this is a quote from the 1812 version of the Brothers Grimm. The princess was horrified. She was afraid of the cold frog and did not dare to even touch him, and yet he was supposed to lie next to her in her bed. And I guess the other thing that you need to know about this is that the story is very clearly a cautionary tale for children to learn to keep their promises. She tells the frog that she'll give him anything if he gets her little golden ball from her when she drops it in the water, and her father makes her keep her promise. So I don't know, I didn't really care for that. Sometimes you can make pretty bad promises. Beside a dark circle of water, a well so deep I could not see its bottom, I tossed my little golden ball. The stranger came out of the trees. My father must have told him where to find me, playing in the dark beneath the linden tree. No one called me to supper. From the shadows he watched me play. The truth is, he was not green. It was night, deep and black, starless, when the ball finally splashed into the water. The stranger touched my arm. I dropped the hem of the dress I'd been wringing. I dried my tears, eyed the surface of the spring. My father must have told him what to say. Her mother gave it to her. Retrieve it and she'll promise you anything. At supper, when he demanded I share my plate, I held the little golden ball in my hand. The cold metal made me shiver. His teeth gnashed, sharp and white. His tongue flickered over the meat. When my father ordered me to take him upstairs, I had to watch the stranger undress. The ball rolled under the bed. Oh, mother, I thought, mother, save me. So this one is called Instructions for Letting the Stranger into Your Bed. And it begins with an epigraph from the same version of the tale, in which the frog says to the princess, "Take me to your room and make your bed so that we can lie in it together." Instructions for letting the stranger into your bed. You'll need the darkest lampshade, a mirror slick with the shine of jasmine, a mask tattooed with the oath you made beside the spring. His skin is cold, like leather or metal, drenched with well water. His voice drips with the sheen of newest things. He saved your little golden ball. He will demand you touch his wet skin. Look at yourself. Put on the mask. Pull the lampshade down, down, until you see. All right, so I'm gonna read one more fairy tale poem, and this one is about Snow White and Rose Red. That's sort of a lesser known story. You guys know about it? It's kind of weird. Snow White and Rose Red is about a widow. I'll read you the epigraph and then I'll sort of give you the backstory on it. So this is the beginning of the story. There once lived a poor widow all alone in a little cottage, and in front of the cottage there was a garden with 2 rose bushes growing in it, one with white roses and the other with red. And the idea is that there's 2 little girls who live with the widow. There's Snow White and Rose Red. It doesn't have anything to do with the regular version of Snow White that we all know. But the girls are very good. They don't fight like girls in many other fairy tales do. They get along quite well. And what happens in this story is that a bear knocks on the door and asks to come in, and the mother tells them to let the bear in, and in the end the bear ends up being a prince in disguise. So this story, this poem, is about the widow. It's called The Widow Grieves Her Husband. Suppose it is an accident, the woodcutter teetering from treetop. Suppose no one is with him, so that that day and the next he seems not to come home. She knows, and so she sleeps like a girl from another story, the sort who pricks her finger on a spindle, the sort who brushes her hair with a poisoned comb. The house goes dim, the blankets dirty. She tells the girls to go play. She leaves the bed only when she must. The shadows laugh each time she goes. Suppose the girls, grief-stricken, confused, forget the rose bushes. Rose red, Snow White, unpruned, they follow birds into the woods. They go. By the time the widow wakes, the thorns have snaked into the window. A prison of roses, Snow White, Rose Red, have grown over the bed, her heart, her arms. She is enclosed. Suppose we give her that, one moment, the mother, the widow. Suppose we give her thorns to rattle, blood on her fingers, desire of her own. Okay. So I only moved here in 2011, so I've been here about 3 years, going on 4, and I've only just now started to write stuff that is like really inspired by Sault Ste. Marie. I sort of feel like when I move to a new place, it takes a while for me to sort of soak up the atmosphere and get it right, because I'm petrified of getting it wrong. But this one is a poem that it just came out in a magazine called Midwestern Gothic, and it's called Moon Landing, and it's set here in Sault Ste. Marie, and it is about a really terrible snowstorm we had a couple of years ago. I don't know if y'all remember, but there was a week where it was just almost like snow day after snow day. We had a Monday, there was a snow day, and a Tuesday, there was a snow day, and then a Friday. And I started to get sort of stricken by the way that my neighborhood didn't really look like a neighborhood at all anymore. It looked like a moon. Like it was just craters of snow everywhere. So it's called Moon Landing. Something is falling from the sky, adorning telephone poles, bare branches, wires, a glistening crust of oxygen, silicon, aluminum, the wild lace of space dust. The whole world is black and white, a reel from a silent movie, a closed captioned hush over the yards. My husband floats out in a padded suit and boots. The flakes coat his beard. He surveys the craters and mounds, holding a shovel like a flag. One small step for man, I think, peering out from behind a curtain, dreaming of mail and trash removal. But he leans on the spade instead of planting it. He glares at the snow. He pockets his gloves. It is February, 18 degrees below, colder than the moon on the day of the landing. Mankind will have to wait for his fingers to thaw. He really did look like Neil Armstrong in that giant coat when he walked out. I was like, I feel like I'm in another place. All right, and so this is the last one I'll read. It's called The Day the Woman Shed Her Skin. And it's like, if you can imagine this, it's like a B horror movie set in the eastern Upper Peninsula. And it's written from the perspective of the police department. And this is coming out in the Chattahoochee Review later this year. All right, so The Day the Woman Shed Her Skin. Maybe a noir, maybe it's a noir or a crime drama, but anyway. The day the woman shed her skin, we found her husband in the closet, her old skin wrapped around him, an empty bottle of gin at his feet. He showed us the paper-thin slough of her shoulders, the mask of her face, the eye holes, the open mouth through which she must have stepped, shiny, renewed, complete. He showed us the hanger on which he found her flesh, neatly hung beside the mink he had bought her the year before. The air conditioner hummed. The coat hangers jangled. He offered us drinks. He filed a report, the long form, missing persons. The evening news did a feature. Local woman sheds skin, leaves husband. The chief had us call in an APB. They never found her, but there are rumors of a woman with clouded eyes who hitches rides on I-75. She steps out of the trees, her skin shimmering like cream. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
To introduce Diane Meyer.
Yay.
Here, here.
This is sort of a last minute thing. Because I was just going to leave. Well, this isn't really a poem, but it's a story. It's a story, and this actually took place in the Southwest a few years ago. I call it Southwest Saturday Night Fever. If you expect life after 60 to be dull, think again. Open yourself up to possibilities and head to New Mexico. My husband Carl and I did just that for the winter of 2008-2009, leaving our snowy home in the northernmost part of Michigan on the border of Canada. On our way to 3 months of adventurous volunteering at the Gila Cliff Dwellings National Monument, we spent a week camping in the area north and east of Alamogordo. This was the beginning of what New Mexico's off-the-beaten-track places had to offer in the way of surprise, stimulation, friendliness, and humor, in addition to the beauty and renewal of the desert. After hiking through the volcanic rock trails of the Valley of Fires recreation area just west of Carrizozo on a mid-December afternoon, we took the suggestion of a helpful campground host. We headed off to the old gold mining community of White Oaks for the every Saturday, all day and night cowboy music and dance party at the No Scum Allowed Saloon. We arrived at 6 p.m. The No Scum looked like a structure out of the Old West, which of course it was. With anticipation of the unknown, we opened the heavy wood door and peered in. A massive bar stretched down the right side of the long, narrow, dimly lit room, with a horde of revelers gathered around it. Greetings of "come on in" were called out to us. We set aside any reservations and stepped in. We worked our way through the crowd to the larger room in the back. It had rough-hewn wood plank walls, colorful Christmas lights hanging from the ceiling, a few scattered tables and chairs, several red vinyl booths, and a down-home atmosphere as the wood stove blazed away in the far left corner of the room. To the right, the Cowboy Mafia band was setting up for Johnny Cash night. While the band spent an hour getting things hooked up just right, we sat at our table, watching a parade of characters enter. Cowboy Black was in vogue. The owner of the bar, Tony, was dressed from head to toe in black with a 3/4 length waistcoat and black cowboy hat on his finely slicked back white hair. To complete the look, Silver flames reached over the toes of his black cowboy boots and flared to the ankles. Tony walked with authority of height and stature, his only weakness betrayed by the gingerly placed steps, as though his feet were too small for his body, or his boots were ill-fitted, or perhaps it was bunions. Tony smiled and came over to say hello to us, asking if he could get us a drink. Having asked what non-alcoholic beverages were available, he replied, NA, beer, Coke, and water. We were soon served up with 2 Cokes on the house, no doubt in honor of our unusual request. There were numerous men in black, the MC with flowing white hair, a long-haired band member in manly garb, one fellow with tan boots to break up the monotony, another donned a floor-length light tan range coat, which would later swirl as he danced. There were the cowgirls, too. Some wore black only, others donned various revealing garb looking strong and tough. A couple of them were quite elegant. Mainly, there seemed to be a lot of hard-living women out for an evening of fun. One woman, obviously snookered, was falling all over her man. Carl thought she was asked to leave, being on the verge of falling down. A slim, 4-foot-tall fellow, dwarfed by a 10-gallon hat, entered the room and sat in the corner. This 7-year-old was dressed just like Dad. The corner was not for him. Soon he was on the dance floor with Mom. Then we met Misty. She was an older woman dressed with Spanish flair. Her wide-brimmed black hat had a silver bow. She wore trim black pants and a short jacket with a big red and black scarf tied in a bow at the neck. She was an attractive woman, aglow with energy and friendliness. Her weathered face was full of cheer and happiness at being with her crowd of friends. Cigarettes were being lit one by one, but we determined to partake of the experience in spite of an aversion to smoke. The fiddling with equipment was finally completed about 7, and the MC thanked everyone for coming, welcoming us to the 3rd annual Bill Patterson, aka Johnny Cash show. Without fanfare, he announced, "Here is Johnny Cash." Before the first note could be played or the first word sung, all the lights blinked off. Small flames from lighters soon appeared in the darkness and a couple of flashlights beamed. Excitement ensued with people running here and there. A pair of 12-volt speakers was produced shortly but would not work. Carl, my always at the forefront of action husband, dashed up to the stage for a quick conversation as it was announced that the lights were out all over town. He then consulted with Misty, and they disappeared out into the windy night. Before long, she returned with our inverter in hand. Thus, the speakers were hooked up to the microphone and one guitar. Now, our man, Johnny Cash, could start singing, his voice cutting off now and then when the connections wiggled. In what seemed like an age, Carl returned with our battery pack, which he connected to a power strip, hooking up the remaining instruments to the juice. Now the band was in full swing. The atmosphere was charged, and folks started dancing to Johnny's droning of "I Walk the Line." A band member who looked like a muzzleloader kissed his skinny girlfriend. She removed her leather jacket with the orange flames, revealing her tube top and bare midriff. Misty danced, laughing with her many friends. The crowd warmed to Johnny's crooning, feeling like he really was the man, sparking gyrations, smooches, and caresses. This heightened mood in the dim light continued until suddenly the glow of the Christmas lights startled us and the stage lit up. The party was just getting going. We cut the rug to the Jackson duet and a string of Johnny's hit songs. Next, the Mafia boys took over, blasting their best rock and roll. We met Teresa, known as Tree, there dancing with her rambunctious and somewhat tipsy brother, the whirling light tan coat. Tree works with handicapped people living in nearby Carrizozo and finds the 9-mile drive to White Oaks her getaway. She likes our dancing. Carl swings around the floor with Misty, who now idolizes the man who saved the show. We're making friends. The guys behind us offered tamales. I thank them, but we don't eat meat. He replies, "It's not meat, it's dog." The festive bouncer, wearing his orange cotton no scum allowed shirt with the word security emblazoned on the back, is wearing reindeer antlers on his head and is celebrating as much as everyone else. The room is jumping. We dance and dance, each song faster than the last. My heart pounding. What a crazy night. Somehow liberating and definitely fun. Carl being the man who brought the power, the MC gave him 2 bottles of water on the house. We cooled ourselves down, had our last dance, and said goodbye to our friends. Sorry to leave Misty before Misty returned from driving some folks home. She thought we would stay all night. Tony wished us well. Another woman called out for the second time as we left that she loved watching us dance. Out we went into the blustery, dark night, incredulous at the wildly merry, joyful evening we just had. But not to forget the nuttiest part of the evening. Shortly before we left, one fellow who was quite the Hulk was in his groove on the dance floor. Just as I glanced across the dance floor, there he was, bent forward, arms reaching down, and in one seamless motion picked up his fallen trousers from the floor, continuing his dance as if nothing happened. Carl had quite another experience of this. Having viewed the whole episode as he danced in a line of two-steppers, this guy wore no underwear. Not a pretty sight. His head shook in disbelief. And so, a night to remember with a cast of characters, folks out on the town, play acting, or for real New Mexico cowboys. But maybe that was too long. Okay.
Thank you. Wow. Okay, Audrey Hutchison, who is our first person. Number one.
Okay, number one.
Thank you.
I'm short. I'm glad you went first. I was scared to death. And I thought if I went first, because I'm not a poet, I could scoot out before anybody said boo hiss. So here I am. I write books, poetry, but here it is. It's called Red Moon. A wild ride she took, the devil's laughter echoes. He bought her pleasures. Her domestic fortress tossed, scattered in 4 directions, without care. A sneer of venom curled her lips as a bent finger pointed accusingly to those who tried to block her ride. Wet rivulets trickle down the saint's cheeks. Woe for her loss. He tries to win us with gifts, flowers and more. Will we like him? See how he buys and vies for our attention? The diamond sparkles, it doesn't feed the soul. Return to us, blind eyes. Booming laughter, defiant accusing shouts, irking the saints to deflect her guilt. Tugging, emotions pulling here and there. Good or evil, struggling. What of eternity?
Thank you. Matthew Williams, do you need a chair or are you all set?
I got one song I want to play, but I just was writing it today, so I don't. It's the only song I got in my mind right now. But so I'm not playing anything. I'll think about it though. I got 2 poems I want to read.
Okay, come on.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Okay.
I got some. It's the one thing, right? Hey everybody. What's up? So I was gone for the summer. I went to Mackinac Island to work, and
You're looking different.
Yeah, so I shaved all my hair to get the job, and then while I had the job, I grew all my hair back out, and then when I got back, I shaved all my hair off again, and now it's growing back pretty fast, so not sad about that, but still uncertain. So let's see here. So here's this is one that I had written. I wrote a joke with it. I have to say this joke. So it's a joke about my mom, pretty much. So it's hard to write about the birth canal without thinking about my mom, and then it's just a slippery slope from there. Thank you. So that leads into this this poem. So I think the day I wrote that, I was sitting on a swing and I was trying to write stuff and I just couldn't think of anything. And then that popped on my head and I was like laughing about how this is like the dumbest joke I've ever constructed. It just fit together too perfectly. I just blew my mind. So there's this one. It says when I first got here, it's another birth canal thing. When I first got here by birth canal through the C-section of the galaxy, I wasn't bright as a star, but I was much more yellow. I didn't open my eyes because modern science had me blinded on painkillers, and I was dying. I was busy learning the lines, busy not learning. I was just a little bitter. I was thinking about my life, and when I was like born, I had jaundice because for whatever reason, I don't know. But I knew that they didn't think my mom was having they didn't think she was giving birth. So I think it was like that. I think they didn't think she was giving birth, so they gave her pain medication. And then she was giving birth, so they gave me a bunch of pain medication. So I didn't open my eyes for a week. I didn't cry or anything. So I was just, am I allowed to be upset at that? Still?
Yes,
I'm just
yes,
a little angry. Might be. Okay, so yeah, this is one on McMyne. I'd always sit on the swing, and it was pretty cool because every once in a while there'd be like families that come there, and one of them was this little girl was sitting on one of the other swings. And I was sitting there minding my own business, and I was looking at the McMyne Bridge, and then all of a sudden I heard, God, what was the first thing she said to me? I think she said, like, that's a big boat or something like that. It was the first thing I heard out of the left side of my ear. I didn't know she was talking to me. And then I was just kind of like, and I looked over and this little girl was like staring at me. And then she started talking to me and she was like, that's the biggest boat I've ever seen. So then I wrote this, was mostly everything that she said. This is Anna Rose says, bugs bug her. And the longest boat she'd ever seen was 1,000 feet. And she wants to work on a boat someday, 4 days from now. So I told her she better eat her pizza. But she said, nah, that's okay. But don't drag, it's dangerous. That was a conversation. That was about the ins and outs of it. So that's what she told her mom. Don't drag. The mom come back up and she was swinging on the swing. And she had her feet like laying on. She's like, don't drag, Mom. She's like 5 years old. And she's like, it's dangerous. It's pretty good. Made me laugh a lot. So I can see. I could try and do this song. I don't want to take up too much time though. But it's like one thing. No, I'm already taking too long. All right, thank you anyway. I'll do it some other time. Thanks.
No?
Can't do it. But I hope you enjoyed my joke and 2 poems. Sorry, I can't do this song. I gotta go back.
Very cool.
So I see Diana sneaking out, and she's one of my favorite dancers along with Carol, and that was part of her story tonight. So thank you for dancing and bringing so much joy to the soup. Audrey, I wanted to say to you that if you write a poem, you're a poet.
Sorry.
Oh, I just got my marker.
Don't break the library.
I'm going to read to you tonight a poem by Edgar Guest, I already pronounced it wrong. And I'm also going to read a couple of my own poems. I don't know if I can get to the mic and read at the same time. It was a singer of renown who did a desperate thing. For all who asked him out to dine, requested him to sing. This imposition on his art they couldn't seem to see. For friendship's sake, they thought he'd ought to work without a fee. And so he planned a dinner too, of fish and fowl and wine, and asked his friends of high degree to come with him to dine. His banker and his tailor came, his doctor too was there, likewise a leading plumber who'd become a millionaire. The singer fed his guest and smiled, a gracious host was he. With every course he ladled out delicious flattery. And when at last the meal was done, he tossed his man a wink. Good friends, said he, I've artist here you'll all enjoy, I think. I've trousers needing buttons, Mr. Taylor, if you please. Will you oblige us all tonight by sewing some on these? I've several pairs all handy by, now let your needle jerk. My guests will be delighted to behold you as you work. Now, doctor, just a moment, pray, I cannot sing a note. I ask ye here because I thought you'd like to spray my throat. I know that during business hours for this, you charge a fee, but surely you'll be glad to serve my friends tonight and me. The plumber then was asked if he would mend a pipe or two, a very simple thing, of course, to urge a friend to do, but reddest grew the banker's face and reddest grew his neck, requested in his dinner clothes to cash a good-sized check. His guest astounded looked at him, said they, we are surprised. To ask us here to work for you is surely ill-advised. 'Tis most improper, impolite, the singer shrieked in glee. My friends have only treated you as you have treated me. So he's one of my favorite poets. Here's one that I've written, and this is sort of interesting. I had a fun time writing this. I was in Chicago thinking about Michigan last year in February, and I was trying to learn how to write a little better, so I was following these little cards that told me to write something that I really loved and something that I really hated. So I wrote this. I love snow. I love the pure dazzling white, the loveliest of each delicate flake, the quiet of the wood, the shush of a ski, the peck of a woodpecker, the call of a chickadee. Or to be home curled up in the quiet of a kitty on my lap, drinking a cup of spicy tea. Smells good. Something classic on the stereo, looking out at the bird feeder. This is filled with colorful birds, winter birds, blue jays, nuthatches, chickadees, occasionally grosbeaks or cardinals, watching graceful flakes. They look like fairies dancing, swirling to the ground, the quiet hush of evening with bright and beautiful stars, sometimes northern lights. I hate snow. I hate cold. I hate the UP long winters when the snow is higher than my head. The wind blows. I feel trapped. I have to put on way too many clothes and my feet are cold. I feel trapped inside my house. I'm lonely, cold, and sad. Then the last thing I'm going to read to you is a little more lighter than the I hate snow thing. So it also was written in Chicago because I was there seeing my children once again do another play. And this one is written for Emily. In the beginning, she held us hostage, waiting for her entrance. Then, after 22 hours, she made her grand entrance. Waiting, arms gathered her in. Grandpa first. What a delight. Our sixth child, our third daughter. The family's long awaited Emily Laura Cooling. She sang, as I did, before she could talk. She played the piano and sang and sang. Who knew this would be her way of telling us that music and shows would be a big part of her life? Now, she lives in Chicago. As I write this, she is singing Broadway Baby. I'm here to see her play in A Princess Bride, and then direct Into the Woods. It is fascinating to meet Emma's circle of friends who sing and play and make grand entrances.
Thank you, and our last open mic poet is Phil Dansley.
Are you not singing? I saw a guitar.
There's still time.
There's time.
There's a name here at the end, you know. Number 10.
Pardon?
There's a name at the end.
There is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe you're not the last one.
Alan Seymour.
Oh.
Is that you? Oh, sorry about that.
I put it way down when you couldn't see it.
Well, that's,
Thank you very much for your poems. And thank you for saying y'all. I used to live in Texas, and we said y'all too. I haven't heard it in a while.
Yeah. Are you from Texas? I'm from Louisiana.
Oh.
It's a different y'all, but close. I have one poem, and it's about recycling. And here in the Sioux, the two places that I go are the compost area and the recycle place on either end of town. The poem has two parts, and each part is a sonnet. So the poem is called Earth Notes. 1. East of town, just past the city garage, our faith in growth, decay, and change rises in mounds of wood chips, a dark barrage of dirt, long rows of leaves rotting in phases. We back up our pickups to the chipper, watch our deadfall, twigs, gnarly roots swarm to the leaden sky, settle in a whisper of scented spray, spread like proper tributes. Then we back to the rich hoard of black dirt. Shovels in hand, we spade and sift the sweet loam and dream of roses and rhubarb, alert to the surge of dead leaves, cut grass, slow heat. It's the old rhythm of give and take, a rhyme of use and reuse, a compost of earth and time. 2. West of town, just past the industrial incubator, the drop-off recycle center's cool green doors invite our disposable cardboard, newspapers, plastics, numbers 1 through 7 and beyond, office paper, white and dark, tin and aluminum cans, small metals, glass bottles and jars, and a chute for batteries, but not styrofoam, none at all. Beyond these doors, huge mounds of debris raised by a mini dozer, patrolled by Betsy the cat, critter remover for free. 3 times a year, men in hazmat suits quantify our poisons, while the stars keep their counsel. Our waters try to heal. Our earth spins a sad vigil. Thank you. By the way, there really is a Betsy the cat in the recycle center.
And Ken, Phil's going to be reading in about a month.
Oh,
Are you for
Sure.
the Border Crossing?
Sure.
Yeah, you'll be here in November to read on the 11th.
cool.
We're giving you props right now.
Thank you. Shouldn't do that to him, but. Sorry, Ken.
Okay, well, I was going to say that was the last one, but you put yourself down at number 10, and I couldn't see down that far because I don't see well. Would you like to come up here? You can turn and face the folk.
I'm going to.
Okay, good, because I was going to get nervous.
Don't get nervous. I'll be the nervous
You
one.
want to stand? You want to
I'll
sit?
stand right here like this because it's a short one anyway.
Okay, cool.
Hi, I'm Alan Seymour. I'm here because Renee told me to be here. I'm pretty shy usually. And She gave me this song a couple weeks ago. So I'm here to give it for you, give it to you. This is a Woody Guthrie song called Way Over Yonder in the Minor Key. I lived in a place called Oakfuskee. I had a little girl in a hollow tree. I said, little girl, it's plain to see, ain't nobody can sing like me. Ain't nobody can sing like me. She said it's hard for me to see how one little boy got so ugly. Yes, my little girlie, that might be. There ain't nobody that can sing like me. There ain't nobody that can sing like me. Way down yonder in the minor key. Way down yonder in the minor key. There ain't nobody that can sing like me. We walked on down by the Buckeye Creek, see the frog eat the bottle-eyed bee, to hear the west wind whistle to the east. There ain't nobody that can sing like me. There ain't nobody that can sing like me. Oh, my little girlie, will you let me see? Way down yonder where the wind blows free. Nobody can see us in the hollow tree. There ain't nobody that can sing like me. There ain't nobody that can sing like me. Way down yonder in the minor key. Way down yonder in the minor key. Nobody that can sing like me. Her mama cut a switch from a cherry tree and laid it on her and me. It stung a lot worse than a hive of bees. There ain't nobody that can sing like me. There ain't nobody that can sing like me. Now I've walked a long, long ways. I still look back to my Tanglewood days. I let a lot of girls since then you stray, saying there ain't nobody that can sing like me. There ain't nobody that can sing like me. Way down yonder in the minor key. Way down yonder in the minor key. There ain't nobody that can sing like me. There ain't nobody that can sing like me. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
And that ends our program tonight. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Mary McMyne, thank you very much for being our featured poet. I'd like to thank every one of our open mic poets. So thank you. Good night.